welcome back to Got Her Back. Hi.
Hello.
I feel like I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to y'all.
I'm addicted to
I'm
you too.
totally addicted
I'm
to you.
addicted and I just can't get enough.
You don't know that?
What are we talking about today, guys?
We're talking about addiction, like so much. Like we could be addicted to, you don't have an addictive personality.
No, not me. But I mean, there are things that like I would say like I'm like a workaholic. So I mean, I guess you could consider that
Yeah, because some people like numb out with their work.
for sure.
Yeah. Do you? Do you have an addictive?
I'm addicted to control.
And Amazon.
Amazon Prime.
take
You know,
control.
I really don't want y'all to look at my Amazon shopping
I want to look.
history because that is something that
So I'm having to come to terms with that, like living with G now, because every time we come back, he's like, Carrie, I'm like, just get used to it, because every day, every day.
Amazon is so convenient.
And I hate shopping, and I hate going around people. So it's like the best thing for me.
I know. Trent was like, Maria, we need a packing tape for shipping stuff. I'm like, all right, I'll just get it from Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much easier.
Like, I don't want to go to Target.
No.
It's going to save me money too.
Yeah.
Like, it's
And
girl
Target-
math, because Target, I'm at least spending $300.
And Target is
Absolutely.
not close over here.
No.
At our new house, it will be, but
Oh hey.
not here.
Got one by my new house.
Hey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, girl.
I feel like one of the things that we tend to do that we don't think is addicting is our phones,
For sure.
social media,
For sure. You know when I got
watching
addicted?
people.
I got addicted to TikTok whenever I had Spencer, and she wouldn't feed. 'cause, you
It
know,
was
she
the
can't-
pandemic. Everybody got addicted
Well,
to
I know,
TikTok.
but like it was really bad because she wouldn't feed, and you know she lost a pound when she came home, and it was the pandemic, and so it was like super scary. They're like, if she doesn't start eating, she's gonna have to go back to the hospital, and like I was so freaked out. So literally, and she was so slow to feed. So it's like you try to give her like 2 ounces. And then by the time you got done with those 2 ounces, it's time to like feed again. And so I literally would like just have the bottle in her mouth and be like scrolling TikTok. It was not good. So
Yeah.
that's how I got addicted to TikTok.
So
for sure.
Oh, so you're addicted to TikTok.
Yeah, I would say. I mean,
Got
yeah,
Amazon.
TikTok.
TikTok.
I'm not addicted to TikTok. I always forget it's even there.
You know the one thing I struggled with for years, 20-year career, and I've just kind of broke it in the last 6 months. I used to not be able to go to bed without looking at like my commission reports, and there's like 4 or 5 reports, and they don't update until like I can tell you what time they update at 11:30 at night. So it was like obsessed. It was like an obsession, and now I like force myself to go to bed or try to go to sleep before that. You know, so literally. That
So
was,
what
like,
are some
really bad.
ways that you break those habits? Or what do you think? How do you break habits with your
I
phone?
mean, I would say the first thing is accepting it that you have.
Admitting that you have a problem.
Yeah. You know, I guess that would be the first
The
thing.
12-step program.
And then the second thing is like finding other things that you can,
Fill the time with.
yeah. You
Yeah.
know,
Have you ever been addicted to your phone?
I'm in social media.
Yeah.
Like, that is my job. It's so crazy because people are like, you know, you're on your phone all the time, but it's not just because I'm watching people. Like, yes, I am like scrolling through like my For You, or, you know, I like getting ideas,
Yeah.
you know, so to me, that's research purposes.
You're a content creator.
Yeah, but sometimes, and this is going to hit really hard, I was sitting in Marley's room and they wanted me to play with them. And I'm like, hold on, mommy's working. And so she was like, you're always on Instagram.
Yeah.
She's checking you.
Yeah. And so I was just like, when your child notices that, it's just kind of like, dang.
It does make you feel so bad.
Yeah. I'm like, I have to learn how to put my phone away. So what I do now I just, you know, post in the morning, or I do as much as I can when they're not around. And then
One thing that I did whenever I became really addicted to my phone, I became really addicted to my phone when I started my business and had to get on social and stuff like that. And so I would make excuses all the time. Well, I'm doing this for work. I'm talking to my clients. I'm messaging them back or whatever. And then you do become addicted to it. So in the settings on Apple, you can go into settings and go into screen time. And I would put like limits on all the apps that were like drawing me to them. And I would put like, I started with like an hour and a half limit or something like that for Instagram. And then it'll alert you like, you only have 15 minutes left. You only have 10 minutes
smart.
left. And then when it hits, it just fades off into the background. Like you can't even see the app, which was super cool. So it's built into Apple. I don't know if anybody knows that.
That's
so
actually
smart.
that's a good
And
thing.
what it did was you can bypass it, but what it did was I'd be like, dang, it's already been an hour and a half. Like I have so many things I've been saying I didn't have time for.
Yeah.
Like, so it was starting to it was just like causing more awareness for me. And that's what I did. And sometimes I'll check myself and do it again. And I have them on my kids' phones
Y'all
too.
want to know something funny? I'm addicted to playing games like bingo.
Are you really?
Bingo and that bubble game where you shoot the bubbles
I don't
for
play
the colors.
any games.
No.
Just because I was like, okay. Or like there's another game that I found where you put they're like different colors of people that you have to put in the same colored buses. It's like a puzzle. So I will say I'm exercising my brain. No, I'm playing games.
Exercise.
Yeah.
Hey, but I truly struggled with addiction though. Like whenever I was 16 years old. You know that?
Oh,
You know that.
I know that.
Yeah, you know that?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so whenever I was 16, I probably started using before that. But we were exposed to a lot whenever we were younger. And I think that's like one thing that I do parenting now is I don't really drink in front of my kids or anything like that just because we were so exposed to it that all of us like in our teen years were like ready, like because we just thought it was normal. And nobody really knew or paid attention because we were exposed. So I remember you just kind of start with like smoking a cigarette. And then I started smoking weed. And then don't even get me started on ecstasy. As soon as I tried that, I was like,
Rabbit hole.
I don't ever want to feel normal again. Like I want to feel like this for the rest of my life.
Is it
And-
because you feel like you were trying to
Escape something.
escape?
Yeah, it's because I had like such trauma, I think. Especially like when I was like 14, I had like a major traumatic thing that happened to me and went like super dark. And
Do you
I think
wanna
that's
share that
what,
traumatic thing?
no,
No.
maybe one day.
Okay.
I'll share it with you guys, but maybe one day. And it had nothing to do with my family or anything like that. But I mean, I guess I could share it. I mean, I was sexually assaulted when I was a teenager.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
I
Yeah.
did not know that.
Yeah. And so I like started painting my room black and I'm gonna cry. And like wearing black and then it was just like whenever I felt that I was like, oh, I just want to live here. I don't ever want to live with the other. Yeah. And so I think that was from 16 to 22. 22 and I overdosed.
I knew that. You told
Yeah.
me.
And then I overdosed and because like you could not rein me in, girl. Like if I started, I was like,
Really?
yeah, it was just like whatever. You know what I mean? So like that night in particular, and I think this is like very interesting and I've done a lot of research, I've done a lot of programs and things like that, but a lot of people overdose whenever they get clean. So they get clean and then they relapse. But when they relapse, they think they have the same tolerance that they had before they got clean. So I was clean for like 6 months straight, did really well, had a friend over, we were all going to go out, and she was like, hey, we should party. But she's like, but we'll just have it. So I was like, okay. But when I start, like, you can't stop me. So that night, it was just like, I think I just thought, oh, wow, this is what I've been missing. I could do the little, and then I woke up on my couch looking like it was the craziest experience. I was laying on my couch, and when I opened my eyes, like the sun was up like this, and 3 people that I was with that night were staring at me like this. And I was like,
They probably should have taken you to the hospital.
look, I was like, what are y'all looking? Like, move. Like, I was like pushing them, and they were like, are you okay? Like, and I had already been going through that for like hours and hours and hours, but they were too scared to take me anywhere.
That's the scary part.
Oh my God.
Because they thought they were getting in trouble, which they might have. I don't know. What is the rules on that? Will you get in trouble if you take somebody?
I don't think so.
I don't
No.
think so.
No,
I
you
don't think so. I think they allow that because they want you to.
They
Yes.
want you
But in
to.
your mind, when you're super young, you're like,
And and they're probably on drugs. So it's like,
yeah.
Like to get them there, or to get you there, they're going to have to drive, or even, I think it's just like a scare, So I think that I try to have those real conversations with my kid now. I tell him, because right now, like what is that drug that's in everything that's killing
Fentanyl.
Yeah. So like, it's a different day and age. I tell my son, like, you don't even take a Tylenol from somebody.
No.
Because it could be like maybe a pain pill or something that they've gotten off the street. And then that one pill could kill you. It only takes one.
And that's why I had to finally like sit Brylan down and have a real conversation with him and be open about my story, to be like, that was a different time. I want to be open with you. You can talk to me about anything. But at the same time, like, this is what's going on. He was like, Mom, I already know about all that. Like, I'm like, you can't take anything. Like, we like, we were just wild and free,
Right.
and we had no social media. We have no evidence other than this right now.
Right.
But I had no evidence. So we could like, they can't even take a drink, and somebody could
put it on
them, and hold that forever against colleges or scholarships or whatever. We never had that. We were in a different day and time, but I remember, cause I think I was 22-ish when that happened. That was like an outer body experience for me, because I was already a mom. So I didn't have him that weekend, of course, or anything like that. But I just remember thinking, like, holy crap, like, I could have died. And then Brylan would have been, like, alone. And so that was, like, my cold, like, I mean, I just went cold turkey, like, super cold turkey. You know what I mean? Like, and
that's when you realized that was a issue, like, you pretty much just cut it off, or did you find help, or what did you do?
There was a lot of things that I had to do. Like, so the first thing that I had to do was, I just didn't want it anymore. Like, I felt terrible. I felt like a truck ran over my body. Like, that's how you feel. And so, but it was just like all the shame that was with it. It was like, oh wow, I really do have a problem. Like, before I could lie to myself and be like, oh, I'm just having fun. Oh, I'm young. Oh, I don't have my kid, blah, 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 blah. But then it was like in your face, like, oh shoot, you have a real problem. So like the first thing that I had to do was I had to switch all my friends. Like, I could not be friends with my friends. Like,
that makes sense.
That was the major thing, because that was the only group that I ran around with. And so that was like the first thing. I could not be around it, period. For probably 10 years. I couldn't be around them. And I would just have excuses. Oh, I'm just so busy. Oh, I even had one of my best friends, when she got sober, she had to move to Florida. Like, she had to move away from her family. And so, that was just the way that I had to roll. That was the main thing. I just could not put myself in settings like that. I couldn't be in clubs, because I knew everybody. I couldn't be around those friends. Like, that was probably like the best like thing that I ever did. And then you just had to keep working, like, focus on something different, like what you were talking about before. I started focusing more on like my health, and just being like a better mom and being healthier and things like that. So you just have to try to like shift your focus. And then eventually started my business, and then that was like my baby and like my obsession.
I think, Trent gave us this book last week, and so it talks about that in there. Like,
what?
He went through that, like, changing his life and getting like, not that he allowed for his friends to come with him, but some chose not to. So I think when you go to like crack it open, like, I think that part is going to like speak to your heart, even though it's like from so long ago, like it's going to take away from, and it's amazing. And that's like such a blessing for you that you didn't have to go to rehab, that you were able to do it cold turkey. Because there are a lot of people, and like, let me look in the camera. Like, if you have addiction and you cannot get over it, like, take your butt to rehab. Like, do whatever you need to do to seek and find help.
And the thing about the rehabs are, because I've helped people like, from then to now, like, get into places like that, they help these women. Like, these places are like legit. Like, I want to go because like, they are like beautiful. They really rehab your mind too on a lot of them, where you're like, okay, yes, you're not your addiction. There's a reason why, so you can't just treat addiction. You have to treat your mind. Like, why are you numbing out? Why are you trying to stay in this altered reality? Why are you doing those things? There's like so many things you have to do. So I had to do so much like self self-work, like self-worth work, self-work, like all kinds of work that I had to do. So like you should see my book collection. Like it's like, I mean, it's so many, but I gift them too to people too. Like, oh, this one was really cool. Like I'll give it away or whatever, but you should see my books. Like it's wild, but I had to teach myself because I didn't grow up in an environment for like self-work. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I had to find it on my own. And then of course in my relationship with God too, like that was a huge part of it, distancing from my friends. But I have a lot of family members that struggle with addiction. That's why I feel like it is it's environment and it's genetic, because on my dad's side, there's tons of addiction. Like he has not, there's 8 brothers and sisters. Well, there's several that, have suffered through addiction on that side. And then you have my mom's side where there's literally nothing. So it's like you can see it like visually, or it could be like generational curses. It could be like all kinds of things like that I've read about that I'm like, ooh, but that's a whole nother podcast. But even sometimes like around your family, like people think you're boring. So you got to also like go against that. But since I have a lot of addiction in my family, I had to start going to Al-Anon.
Smart though.
And Al-Anon is like so good for you. Like I almost feel like everybody should go, like even if it's just for codependency or whatever, because I do have family members like in the middle of addiction that you have to learn like how not to carry that like as part of like your day to day.
There's so many resources you talked about earlier. Like it felt like it kind of gave a picture of like, there are these like great rehabs where it's almost like a day spa, you know what I mean? And that is typically going to be like cost a lot of money, but a lot of them do that people don't know. They take insurance, but I want for people to also know there are resources. Like if you don't have the money, or
they
you
also
don't
have grant programs though.
Yeah, grant programs, because you have friends in Oklahoma that have one. We can talk about that. And then also like even the hospitals, like, because I've had to help, an employee for their son. And so, you can call, and because sometimes alcoholism and drug addiction is also like goes hand in hand with like a mental illness, not in your case, but in some people's cases.
Probably because I was probably dealing with PTSD, depression, anxiety. Like I had tons of that, but I didn't know what it was.
That's not necessarily a mental illness.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times like somebody that's mentally ill will like cope and get dependent on drugs or alcohol because they're using that to escape whatever their demons are. So a lot of times if they go get the mental illness checked, then the other stuff kind of falls in line.
And I see that a lot in my family, like where that you can see the two. And so with the medication they're prescribed, it makes them feel not like their personalities. So then they try controlled, substances, and then they're like, oh, I feel alive and this and that. Like I feel like I can be who I am. And so they trade one for the other. And then they get stuck in it. And then I've seen family members where it just, like a lot of times it just starts with like pain medication. You know what I mean? And then it just continues and continues and continues.
I mean, what do you do if it's like, like in your case, a family or a friend, and they won't seek help? Like, what should we do?
You have to just be there for them. Like, just be there for them. Like, do not give them any money at all, period. And that was like the biggest thing that I learned in Al-Anon was, okay, what if you even gave them $5 and they used that $5 and then they died? So like when they broke it down like that, I was like, then I never wanted to give money again, because I always felt guilt because I was like, oh, it's just $20 or it's just $40 or whatever, like they need to eat or whatever. But what they teach you in Al-Anon is like not to ever give $1. You can give them a ride to help,
or give them
you
food.
can give them food, you can give them, like a shirt or whatever, but not money. And that was like the biggest thing. And when they broke it down, like you could be the one to like actually take their life away from them. That's how they have to explain it to a lot of parents that have children in it, because the parents will literally sell their house if they have to. You know what I mean? To get their kids back.
Do they ever make you feel guilty for not?
Of course they do. They're so good at manipulation. That's the thing, is that it goes hand in hand, because they'll do anything to feel better. And so they don't know that I don't think that they realize at the time, because you have to realize, like, it's not even them you're talking to anymore. It's their addiction.
Yeah.
Like, their personality is completely different. So I think that was like the really biggest thing, is just to be there if they need you, but also to have boundaries. Like, I don't have to answer in the middle of the night. I don't have to jump every time you make a bad decision either. So you have to decide what your boundaries will be and voice them to them. You know what I mean? Like, I'll bring you food. You know what I mean? Like, I've had people call me and I'll be like, I'll bring you food. I'm not working today. I'll come. I'll do that. But they don't want that. So that's the thing. And then you'll see real fast, they don't want that. And, you know, in a time right now that we live with Venmo, Cash App, Apple Pay, like all this stuff, like that just takes it to a whole nother level. Like we didn't have that back then, you know?
I'm just thankful that, you know, like what you said, that you had Brylan to help you kind of get better, but get better.
I almost just felt like it was a second chance. Because I was like, dude, like what happened? You know what I mean? Like, because.
Can I tell you guys a story?
Yes.
Love it.
So, I think I'm kind of like you, Megan. Like, I don't have a super addictive personality, but, you know, growing up, you know, when I was younger, I started drinking and partying at a young age. And it got bad, like to the point Wednesdays. I did not part Wednesdays, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. I partied.
You were off Monday and Tuesday.
I was off Monday and Tuesday.
Covering.
Oh, well, Tuesday and Wednesday. I was off on Tuesday.
I was like,
dang.
did
I was off.
I'm like, that was
I was off on
Tuesdays,
Tuesday.
You were a machine.
She was off on Taco Tuesday.
Yeah. But it was one of those, like, I loved dancing. I loved having a good time, but I didn't feel comfortable within myself. So that's when I turned to, you know, drinking. So I would drink 6 days out of the 7 weeks.
That's how it happens, though. It slowly happens.
And then to
right?
the point where I'm like, I can't go out until I have a drink. You know, something like that. My 21st birthday, it was my 21st birthday weekend. I finally was like, all right, finally, I'm finally legal to drink. But it was the day before my real 21st birthday. And I was drunk. And I was going to go drive to Trent, see Trent after the club. And I was also, remember back in the days we had the Canon cameras that you would scroll through the pictures. So I was looking at that while I was driving and drunk. And it was icy in Indianapolis. And the insurance agent, she was like, I don't want to know this.
Look away. Look that
going.
way.
And I remember, and every time I'm on that curve of the highway, I tell Tristan, like, this is where I almost lost my life. Yeah. So I was driving and it was icy, and then I almost flew off of a bridge. And so I grabbed my steering wheel and I spun around, did like donuts on the street, like on the highway.
It was your aha moment.
Yeah.
Like mine.
And I didn't have a seatbelt either. And so, like, I'm OCD about seatbelts, but for some reason I did not have a seatbelt, but I felt like I was protected in a way. And so I don't know if I should go into the story of like how I got, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you should.
So I ended up, you know, my friend picked me up. And so like my mom was my best friend. Like she was like, what happened? What's going on? And so I was like, Mom, I mean.
Did you wreck the car?
The car was totaled.
Okay.
It was totaled.
And you didn't have a seatbelt on?
No.
What'd you get?
What?
The walls.
The walls on the highway.
Like, you know, you just like ping pong.
Yeah. And so I was still trying to get to Trent's with the car like that. But the hood like flopped up and it hit the windshield.
Is love.
And so I was like, so I ended up driving my car off the highway. My friend picked me up. Can I get in trouble for this?
No.
Oh.
Then I'm getting in trouble.
My friend picked me up, took me home, and she picked up my mom. And she dropped us off there. And so my mom took the blame for it because I was still underage.
Your
Technically,
mom?
a day after. She said she fell asleep at the wheel. And if y'all see, I wish I had pictures of that car. Like, when the car was totaled. I don't know how I made it out alive.
Wow, Maria.
But that was in December. and I got pregnant with Tristan in January.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like, that was like my aha moment, you know?
So we both had a little moment.
Yeah.
And it's funny how those things stick with you, and then you're like, whoop, you just need that to like
And that's
check
why
you.
probably why I don't like, I mean, I'll drink, you know, I have nothing against drinking. I'll drink to the point where I'm like, I could, you know, but.
And I'm going to go ahead and say, like, I guess, so I was 22. So I've been sober for 20 years now, but I'm California sober. I'm not like sober. But like, alcohol was never
An issue.
a vice for me or anything like that, because I like it, but I don't really like alcohol. You know
You're
what I mean?
allergic to a lot of
A
them.
lot of, like, so it's like, I don't even like the way it tastes. So it has to be really like fruity and stuff like that for me to even drink it. So that's never been my issue. So it was more like a search, but I didn't drink for a while, but then I had to like realize, like, okay, well, this wasn't my problem. This was my problem. So I think it's all about figuring out like what your problem was. And some people be like, oh, well, she's not sober. Well, I mean, I think I'm sober because I loved it.
Yeah.
So, and I would never, but it just like was so like in me, like after that, like I would never, ever touch it again.
So like, you know, like we say that, you know, if it wasn't for our kids,
Yeah, they saved
saved us, you know?
Yeah.
But there's so many people I've heard of stories that they're in a situation that they don't like and they cannot get out of.
It's because
so they turn to
shame is attached to it. I mean, it's the same with alcohol. Like if I drink too much, the next day I feel very low and I feel anxious and I have a lot of shame. And so I think that shame is so attached to any of those things that people don't want to confide in anybody. And then they don't want to ask for help because they feel judged. And it's like, I think that people should ask for help. Like, that's where you go to like your people that actually love you. You know what I mean? And confide in them and find help. Like, even if it's just to talk about it, like you have to tell somebody, right?
you know,
But a
every
lot of
time,
people
like,
don't.
When I think of Vegas, I just
You were like that when we were
like,
there. You kept
there's
saying
nothing
it.
about Vegas that is like amazing to
Was
me.
a
Just because
trigger.
I think
Yeah.
that's what it is. The entire time I was like, oh God, no.
I can only be in Vegas for 3 days and I'm like icked. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I gotta go. I
It's
can't.
too much. I'm not a big, like, I've never been a big drinker. So, like, I have all this alcohol and stuff at my house, and, like, I never touch it unless, you know, you guys come over and we're, like, sitting by the pool. Like, I might have a drink by the pool.
Do you
but,
know
like,
that bottle of vodka that we unpacked the other day?
Was that for
I've had that for like
years?
a year or two.
Yeah, I mean, same.
So,
Like,
not my problem.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have some bottles of wine that I know that are still in the wine closet that were from my housewarming, and I've been at my house for 8 years, so probably need to throw those out. Does wine go bad?
No,
I don't know.
I heard it actually
Gets
gets better
better.
with age.
Oh, does it? Okay, I don't know.
Maybe not Stella Rose. I don't know. You'll have to look that
I love
one up.
Stella Rosa.
I do too. Yeah, but that's my little
Yeah.
story. But I just think that people need to be more like transparent about it, because a lot of times it just happens. Like
Right.
it just happens.
You can see it. Like, I've seen it happen with friends. Like, sometimes it just takes someone that really truly has an addictive personality, because I've seen it secondhand. It just takes one time.
Mm-hmm.
One time for them to do some coke. One time for them to take a drink. One time for them to take an X pill. One time for them to smoke some weed, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And some people just don't have an addictive personality. And it's not just about drugs and alcohol. Like, you can we talked about it earlier, get addicted to your phone.
It could be the gym.
Yes. Get addicted
Success.
to the gym. Right. Work. Like,
Yeah.
all of
Money.
that. So I say that I don't have an addictive personality, but I'm like, well, am I a
You're pretty
non-associated?
successful.
Well, I think that's my personality too, like type A. Like, the problem is it's never enough for me. You know what I mean? Like, it's like I always told myself, oh, if I just get to, 10 million in premium, I'll be good. And then get there. And then it's like, okay, well, if I just get to 15, and then, like, I have the conversations with myself and then mentors. And then I'm like, okay, this is a joke. Like,
Yeah.
I know and that's a double-edged sword, right? Because, like, I should be able to be like, that's looking at my self-worth. And so I'm trying to find happiness within my career. Yes, it's built me an amazing career, But it's also like, I know, like, for a long time, in order to build what I have, I had to be a workaholic. I had to work long hours and just push and push through. But a lot of that was I was working through, like, unhappiness of myself. Like, just I wasn't happy with myself.
And I think whenever you're talking about addiction, whether it's that or mine or your, past or anything like that, I think the thing that you can ask yourself, like if you're like feeling shameful about it, or it's hindering like being a mom or your day to day, or it's like making you unproductive or something like that, that's when you have to like self-reflect and be like, okay, this is a problem. Because I mean, even whenever COVID happened, a lot of people started drinking too much. And I talked to a lot of people that were like, wow, I had to check myself. Like I was drinking every day, all day. So it literally, it could happen to anybody.
Of course, nobody is like, and it can happen it can happen to your kids. It can happen to your significant other. It can happen, to friends or whatever around them. And then sometimes it's really hard to like love them through those periods of time. Like, but it just, there's a lot of resources and the person has to want to change. And like you made the comment, Maria, that, you guys as kids saved you, but I want for people to know that like, you need to change what you need to change for yourself.
yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because in order for it to stick, like you guys just happened to have had that and that was like something that you looked, but like I can tell both of you that like being the outsider looking in, like some part of you had to have said like, I need to do this for myself, for my kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So like, I just like, I want people to know, like you got to be willing to say like, okay, it's time for a change. I know that this is a mess. I need to go to whatever resource I can find, to seek help. And if you don't know where to go, then, lean on others around you. And if you don't have anybody,
Look
Google.
for you resources.
Google, right.
I say my first thing, if you like what you said, don't have anybody or, don't know where to go. The first thing I personally would do is turn to God.
Yeah.
Just sit there and just have a moment like in the dark room. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen that. Is it the war room or the prayer room? Just giving yourself and just feeling that vulnerability, like just come out. I feel like that's where it starts. Just
at one time in a counseling session that I was in, and I was struggling like after all that, and then like struggling with self-worth. The counselor was like, she was a Christian counselor, so she was like, when you're, spending time with God, so I was very like regimented. Like I know y'all don't think this about me, but I'm very like regimented, like on my day to day. My private time or whatever, I would get up at the same time. I would spend time with God before my kids got up. I would do this. I would like do all these things. But that's what I had to do for years. So, and I'm not really doing it right now. Like I was telling G the other day, I was like, man, I'm like sleeping in and I'm like, but I think it's just because I'm like comfortable right now and I've done all that work. But my counselor was like, when you're spending time with God, like ask God like what he likes about you or to tell you so, or whatever. And so I was like, that's interesting. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, Lord, I don't know what I like about myself. What do you like about
crickets,
me? I don't know. And you could just like, I don't know. I just have conversations with God. And like people used to ask me all the time, like, how do you know that it's the voice of God versus your own self-talk? Like, I think that's a big question that people have.
you can feel it.
You can feel it, but also if it's anything negative, that's not God's voice ever. He was never going to tell you anything negative unless it's in a loving way. Like his voice is always going to be loving. And so that always stuck to me because it was like anything bad, that's not him, anything good, like that's him, like speaking life into you or whatever. But I just remember him being like, I like you, like you're cool, you're this, like you're a good person, you're a good mom. And then
really
I just,
cool.
You think I'm cool?
I do. I think both of y'all are cool.
God thinks I'm cool. I mean, I'm not really cool, but I'm a cool mom. But
it's just being
open with us today, both of y'all, because I'm like, those were like intimate stories. I feel like I've told some pretty good intimate stories. So I'm like,
it carries embarrassment and it carries shame,
but you should never, because that is your past, and you know what? Like you have grown from that. We had this conversation before, and
Yeah.
Like, and I sat there and told you, there's nothing you can tell me from your past that's going to change the way I feel about who you are today.
Yeah.
Never. It doesn't matter. You can tell me whatever it is. I'm not going to judge you, and it's not going to change how I feel about who you are today. It's growth.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, I think that's why I'm like so in love right now, is because like he knows all those things.
Yeah.
Because
doesn't judge
he
you.
knew me then.
Yeah.
And so he knew my struggles, and he knew all the dark, like the dark side of me.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I have always like kept my eye on him and clung to him. I'm going to cry. But because I was like, wow, I don't have to hide from him.
Right.
Where I did in my marriage. But
I don't think you should. Trent knows all my secrets.
and I love that he knows all of that. Like, you know all of it. And you, like, just like literally like you two and him.
Yeah, but you don't, like, if it's go back to it again. If it's
And
the
he would
right
never
person,
judge me for it. And it goes both ways. Like, I know all of his too, because he was going through a time as well. And so I think it's like so cool when you have those connections with people where you're like, yeah, that was me. And hopefully I'm never there again, but at least you know that about me, and I don't feel like I'm hiding.
Right.
You know, where I felt like in my marriage for a long time, I was trying to be a different version.
And you don't have to ever, like, you just need to be. And whatever that is.
Why are y'all making me cry lately?
Because you are Carrie and you're everything to me. So you just, like, it doesn't even matter. Like, that is, we all have a past. And as long as you grow and learn from those choices, we've all made bad choices in our past. I mean, I have so many. Like, oh my Lord, I could sit here and tell you story after story after story of bad choices. Literally. And it's like, well, here she goes again. But that's not who you are today.
Yeah.
Right.
As long as you're not still in it.
Your past does not define you.
That's right.
It builds you up. It sets you up for like things that just come towards your way. Like there could be like, what if, you know, someone comes up, or like your friend's sons, that you could help them. Like, so your past isn't just something to be afraid of or ashamed of.
And just like you can tell
Helping
Trent,
other people. Yeah.
Maria, like, but sometimes you can tell the wrong people.
Absolutely.
You can tell the wrong people, and they can hold it against
Yeah.
you. And I've had that happen many times in my life,
Yeah.
where I open up and tell, you know, an intimate part of my life or whatever, and then that is somehow turned against me. So you have to be careful
Who you share with.
Who you share. And here I am telling it all, letting
We're
it
just
all
telling the
hang out
world.
on a podcast. But, you know, it is what it is. Like, hopefully this helps people and helps other women and whatever's out there. I just have to know, like, I got to get my bubble wrap, like Miss Thang over there has. You know, Maria's good at the bubble wrap. You know what I mean? Because those people out there are not necessarily going to be in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm okay there. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we said when we started this podcast we were going to be real. So that's
right.
That's my real.
I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. But I am like, I don't struggle with it anymore. And I think like a really weird side note, because we were talking about friendships earlier, is I've looped back to those friends. Like, oh, it's been, you know, I had breakfast with one 6 months ago and was like, oh, this is going to be so fun. And it was sad because she was still stuck. You could tell. And so it was like me looking at like old me, like, and I was just like, no, this friendship is done. Like, she didn't do anything wrong. It was just we had no more connection. We had nothing to talk about. All she was talking about was stories from back then, which I don't want to talk about all that. Like, I mean, I wasn't even coherent half of them, so I don't even know what she was talking about. I was like, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
She's like, you don't remember anything. I'm like, nope, sure don't. I got lots of.
I blocked a lot of it.
Yeah.
You know.
So it was just weird because I was like, man, I really, you know, have you differently in my mind and missed you and things like that. But now I'm like okay with letting that go because we just had grown way
read
too.
Trent's book because it talks about that. I'm telling you.
I'm going to. Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
So I just feel like with this podcast, like we said, it's a no judgment zone. It's a journey in itself, just like with all the past that we've, you know, had to go through. And so it's just a learning process, you know? And
It builds character.
I'm
you
really
know?
glad that we're using our podcast to share things that could help other people. And I want that like this is what the podcast is about, you know, being humbled, empowered, and real.
I'll give you some books and some links and we can put them in there for everybody of what helped me. I'll share those in there too. And anybody can message me if you're struggling or
Well,
if you have a
little more
problem.
self-worth, so I'm gonna need you to go pick your top 5 and bring them to my house.
I already picked them.
Okay,
I already picked them,
first.
and I already know the next one I want you to read because I'll read it again because I love it. So yeah. So this was fun.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I hope you guys got a little bit more of insight about, all of us. Continue to listen to our podcast
Yeah, please.
and follow us on all socials. Got Our Back Podcast and
Got Her Back Show.
all right.
I know it.
Yeah. We'll close out next time.
Bye
Bye, guys.